welcome everybody to episode 2 of the Crag Chat podcast. We know it's been a hot second since episode 1. There's just been a lot going on, man.
That's so true.
I am here with my friend Vivian. Vivian's filling in for Anna today. Whatever we're talking about for the day, I think I'm just gonna bring different people in.
Yeah, I think it's cool to have different perspectives.
Yeah.
Everybody climbs differently. Everybody has different experiences with crags and how to chat about them.
Yeah. Different Crag chatting. You just got back from a trip to Seattle.
I did.
And you did some climbing there. What gyms did you go to in Seattle?
I did. So when I went to Seattle, I went to Vertical World, which they proclaim themselves as the first indoor climbing gym in the USA.
The first, ever?
That's what the sign said. I've been a little afraid to fact check it just in case it's not true because it sounds super cool, so I want it to be true.
Yeah. When I went to Seattle, we went to the first ever Starbucks, which is more of an actual thing. But so we looked up where it was at, and then we went to the Starbucks, and it just seemed like a normal Starbucks, and we're like, this seems like a normal Starbucks. So, walk in, and we're like, excuse me, are you, the first Starbucks? They're like, no, it's, a block down. It's just, and we were like, oh, okay. And
they renovated.
Yeah, and we, walked down, and
then it was,
you could
the
tell,
Pike Place.
Yeah, and you could tell it was, a whole line out the door. Did you go to the Starbucks?
I didn't. I saw the Pike Place signs. That trip could be its own podcast of the things that happened and the things that did not happen. But I tried to get in as much climbing as I could. After going to Vertical World, I also did a little expedition at one of the Seattle Boulder Project locations, which is a chain there, which is crazy to me to think of a city that large and with a climbing community so big that they have chain that just open gyms everywhere.
Yeah,
and the one I went to was the small one, and it was still just about as big as any climbing gym we have here in Ohio. So
yeah, definitely coming from Ohio, that's a little bit of a different experience.
It is. Everyone there climbs. It's the REI. I did go to the first REI, and it was a religious experience. They had so many climbing shoes just out on display.
Really?
Yeah, they had 1.5 full walls of just all the shoes.
That's pretty cool.
I freaked out. And
so that REI was the original REI as well?
Yes.
Dang, yeah. Seattle's got all the
Seattle's got it going
original
on.
Coffee, original REI.
The first...
allegedly.
I feel like I have to look it up now.
Yeah. Oh, we'll look it up after, though.
We will.
So today, what we're primarily... The focus, we both are bad at staying on topic.
Focus, we're going to put that in quotes for those of you just listening. The focus will be...
The focus of today's podcast is going to be if we could make an ideal climbing gym. If we had unlimited money, unlimited resources... unlimited everything, what would we put in our ideal climbing gym?
And only cool people allowed.
Right, only cool people. That's one of the first requirements is there's a bouncer at the door and you have to show your cool ID.
Yes.
And we are the only two.
Everyone needs to pass the vibe check before entering the building.
I don't know if do you watch Smosh at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Is that where you got it from?
No, just my life is a vibe check.
Gotcha.
I fail every day.
For anyone that doesn't know what I'm referencing on Smosh, they have this thing. They're it's a little skit that they do, and they come on and they're like, "Excuse me, something's really off in here. Something's really, really off in here. Just, I think it's the vibe." It's this is an emergency vibe check. It's vibe secured.
Yes, so vibe security, I think we've assured is
that's number one in a climbing gym.
in a climbing gym. Luckily, most climbers do pass the vibe check, so
yeah.
At least in my
a real note, we're joking around obviously a little bit, but on a real note, I do think that the vibe at a climbing gym, just the overall general feel, is really, really important.
It is
because some climbing gyms, when you walk in, there's that feel of this is a serious, more intimidating gym, which if you've been climbing for a while, I don't feel really affects you as much because you're it's just a gym. But as a newbie, it can be really intimidating. coming in.
And I can speak, I started climbing about 8 months ago. So
Yeah.
I've now come to the point where, if I walk into a serious gym, I feel comfortable. I'm like, I'll take my belay test right now. I know where the lockers are. I can read the signs. I know the rules. I know how to stay out of people's way. But where I was at even 4 or 5 months ago, I was terrified at even just going to like Shaker Rocks, which, is a little bit of a niche reference for people not living in Ohio, but it's a serious-ish gym.
Yeah, it's like medium serious.
Medium serious. And from where I was coming from, 10 levels of more serious than like Nosotros.
Yeah, the gym that I started off climbing at was a small gym in Southern California, and I remember, even though I'm the type of person that is not shy to like go up and introduce myself to people more often than not, I remember at the beginning like seeing the people that clearly had like their climbing friends and like already like knew what was going on and be like, oh, I don't know if I'm cool enough to like hang out with these guys. So the vibe's important.
The imposter syndrome is real, and I think that some gyms do a better job than others of trying to make people feel welcome, but I also think that can inhibit the growth of the gym in a way too. It's a hard balance to strike between trying to make sure that people that want to join feel like they can, but also making it a space for climbers to be kind of who they are. Because it does start to turn into its own world and its own community after a while, and that can seem slightly exclusive and like we're trying to edge people out, but we just kind of want a place where we can be ourselves and talk amongst ourselves and not have to worry about it. And I think that sometimes
it's just like creating a culture.
Yeah,
essentially.
exactly.
Which I feel like a lot of it has to do with the people that climb at the gym. Like, yeah, sure, staff can help encourage that, but I think
it's the clientele.
Yeah, and I think one of the most important things you can do as someone that's like a frequent climber at a specific gym, like your local gym, is like if you see someone new, I mean, obviously don't harass them, but like if you see someone new, just like make it a point to maybe introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's definitely a balance. It's definitely a balance. And then, so moving on from vibe of a gym, super important. For me personally, I value the setting at a gym. Like, that's what you're there for, right? Like, you're there to hang out with your friends and whatnot. Maybe that's like an aspect of it, but you're there to climb the route/problems.
Yes.
So if the setting sucks, the
vibe sucks. The setting does affect the vibe, and I think that is true in both who it attracts and who it keeps around, and I've actually experienced that firsthand. I'm kind of living that exact problem. Yeah, so good setters, super, super important at a gym, and I think like also a variety of different setters with different like body types, different genders, different backgrounds. Like I think it's really styles.
Exactly. Just like a variety, because one of the things that I think is really cool in a gym is when there's just a variety of everything. One of my favorite bouldering gyms I've ever been to, the reason that I loved it so much is because it had slab. It had competition style problems. It had like more juggy like brute strength stuff, and then also more delicate technical things. And it was just like, I mean, granted, it was a huge gym, so they had the space to do it, but that's why I loved it, is because you could like dabble in a bit of Ascend in Pittsburgh.
Oh, that's right. You
so yeah,
all right, I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah,
have you been to Climb Cleveland yet?
I haven't been to Climb Cleveland.
I think you'd really like it.
Yeah, I definitely want to go.
I kind of thought that's what you were referencing just as you were talking about it generally. So they do a really good job
of being diverse.
Because they have 3 different floors.
3 different floors? That's cool. Yeah, that's cool. So vibe, setting, what else are like important things for you in a gym? Like if you could go into a gym and be like, okay, this is what I want.
I think a combination of good music and the layout, if the layout makes sense. Like, I don't know how else to describe it, but there's just certain gyms where the way that they have the location of where you put your stuff and where the desk is located and the bouldering and rope climbing, if they
like
have
the flow of it.
The flow of it really does kind of have an effect on how motivated I am to start climbing. If all of a sudden I walk in and then I see all these really cool routes, and then I look and the bouldering thing is just wide open and I just want to like run over there and start climbing, versus like trying to find a place to put my stuff, going up and down a labyrinth of stairs and being like, where do I even start? And it just kind of doesn't direct you. There were some gyms that when I visited immediately, I was like, I'm ready. And there were other gyms where I've walked in and I go like, what?
I'll add in like staff to that equation, because sometimes if you go into a gym and like obviously everyone in the world's understaffed, like I understand, but like sometimes when you go into a gym and it's like, is this even like are people here? You know what I mean? So like having a flow where like when you come in, you immediately feel welcome and there's some sort of face there that's like, hi, if you have no clue what's going on, here's what's going on. That's like preferable, because I know even at the gym that I started at, a lot of the times they'd have like one staff member, and then that staff member would be over like on the far side of the gym, so that if anyone new came in, they'd like kind of wander around a bit. Like
I do remember the first time I ever walked into a gym ever, and this was kind of before I started climbing for real. I just had a class pass and I just tried out this location. I walked in and it was exactly that. The person that was the volunteer or the staff member, whoever was somewhat in charge, I like walked in and I just saw a bunch of people climbing in the middle, and I was on like this raised stage area and I was just kind of like looking, and there was nobody at the desk and I just had no clue what to do, and it took until one of them looked over and then he kind of waved. He's like, oh hey, I'm coming over. I was like, right, okay.
Yeah. And it's like these, obviously all these things that we're talking about, like these are ideals, right? They're ideals. Like obviously there's going to be,
I have also been the person that was supposed to be in charge of the front desk and went, what are the odds that anyone's gonna come in? I really just kind of want to climb this route right now.
Right.
So that happens, and it's also a climbing gym. It's not a hospital. It's okay if you have to wait a second.
Yeah, exactly.
The way that what the gym has to offer is presented, whether or not you get excited about it. Because some places, even the way that they have like the weight area displayed, where you can just kind of see it and it looks cool, suddenly I kind of want to go and lift weights, and I never really have that inclination to be like, well, that looks cool. I want to use the treadmill. Said no one ever.
Yeah. No,
but
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
It's, I think that that's an important part of, you know, if that's what you're going for in the gym. Like, sometimes I'm in a more serious, like, I want to get better. I want to climb hard. And if the gym lends itself to me being able to do that in a way that's like interesting and easy for me, then I'm more likely to keep going back.
And then other gyms are more of like a social chill vibe. The ideal gym would be one where you could feel like you had both, like spaces to do both, like a dedicated space for training, being serious, and then like more of a dedicated space for like there's, like you said, there's gyms that have like more dedicated areas to just hang out. Like for example, one of the gyms, and something that I would put in my ideal gym, is like a coffee shop hangout area. Planet Rock in Ann Arbor they have a really nice gym that's always packed. It's literally always packed. And they have like a coffee shop and a gear shop in the center of it.
Yes, yeah.
And then people kind of just hang out.
Yeah, I went to the Planet Rock in Madison Heights.
Yeah, in Detroit. Okay.
I was just there the other weekend, and they also have. I'm curious. I kind of wish that I had been to the Ann Arbor one so I could compare side by side. They did also have at their front desk around the corner there was a coffee shop, and across from that was a fairly large gear shop. But that was all kind of separate from, and it had a fireplace too. It was very like lodgy there.
That's cool.
It was cool. And then through the doors to the right then was like the expansive.
Yeah. So you talked about flow. I'm curious on your opinion, because I think I have a bit of an opinion on this. The roped area versus the bouldering area. Do you think that they should be like two separate areas Or do you kind of like them all being more together? For example, on the Rocks, my local gym, it's all kind of, and obviously it depends on the building size too.
Right.
But like on the Rocks, basically, it's all kind of in the same area. Like, even if there was the ability, I feel like, separate it with a wall or something, like they chose to not. How do you feel? Would you like them together? Do you like them separate? What's your take?
For me, I like both, so I don't really feel a need to separate them. I do like Shaker Rocks has kind of a happy medium for me where they have a significant portion of their gym dedicated to sport rope climbing routes, and then off to the left or the front part of the building they have bouldering kind of on both sides, so they have their own little like bouldering cove
I like
section.
that it's like a cove.
And then, but you can still look over and you can still see people doing some of the sport climbs, but you don't feel like you're in their face, but you also don't feel like secluded. Vertical World was quite divided in the way they have way more sport climbing routes than any other gym I've ever been in. There was like maybe 6 full walls.
Dang.
And like an entire 40-foot wide, 55, 60-foot tall, like, lead section. Just lead, not, like, yeah.
Yeah.
So, there was way more of that than anything, and their boulder section was, like, kind of sad. Like, by comparison, because there was just so much other space. One wall and the other bouldering wall was, like, back to back with the first like rope climbing wall, so it was almost like partitioned off. And then they did have a kids section, which I thought was cool. They had shorter walls for kids.
I like the idea of a kids section because while I am of the opinion that climbing should be for everyone, I don't think that kids, they just naturally don't have the social awareness
to not stand underneath someone that's about to fall. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. I literally almost the other day, I was going to tie in to climb a route, and I just feel something by my leg, and I'm like, is there a dog? Like, what's going on? And there was not a dog. There was a, like, maybe 3 to 4 year old child that just, for whatever reason, decided that the place he needed to be was right by me, touching my leg.
Oh.
And I was like, hi. And he just kind of looks up at me and just, like, goes off. And then apparently when I was climbing the route, he came back and I'm lead climbing and he's, like, in between Jed and I, like, Jed belaying and me climbing. He's, like, standing in the way, but obviously Jed's, like, not going to try to push him. Like, it was just awkward. So I am all for a kids section so that kids can climb, but there's, like, a designated area for them to do that.
Right. The other thing that I was thinking of, even back when we were talking about, like, vibes and welcoming environments, was, and maybe we'll get into this more when we talk about, like, the hours of a gym, but I think it might be a benefit if there were specific times, maybe not that, like, only beginners were allowed, but that there were times where newer people could come and try to find, if there was, like, a designated couple of hours. The Boulder Bros are going to stay home for a little bit. They'll come in, but then you have...
Whereas, like, Gumby night, like, in the nicest way possible.
Gumby
where
night,
it's, like...
And, or even a kids night where the parents can come and keep an eye on their kids, but there won't be a whole bunch of Boulder Bros trying to knock their toddlers over. Because I think that...
Right. And there's nothing against Boulder Bros.
Or toddlers, or Gumbies, in the appropriate amounts and spaces. And that's not to say that they also can't intermix, but if there is someone who's particularly concerned about it, I don't want to get run over by people that know what they're doing. Yeah. I want to just have time to figure this out by myself.
Well, I think that those 3 that we said are just, like, it's not that any one is, like, bad, obviously. It's that the cultures are just different in each scenario, so...
And it can create chaos if it's not managed properly, which sometimes it's just hard to do. Some gyms do their best. Like, the other day, we had 4 small children at the gym that I was helping out with, and some of them were just grabbing the brush and just brushing footholds just underneath people climbing. And as much as I trusted the people on the wall,
right,
I just didn't want this 4-year-old to get squashed. But
wow,
I'm also
how considerate.
not running a daycare, and so
Yeah,
I don't necessarily feel
exactly.
comfortable. Even as the employee, it's my job to manage it. But I'm not gonna be like, hey,
right,
little kid, get away from that wall. So I'm trying to like
Yeah.
explain to them, like, hey, I'm okay if you brush the holds, but just make sure no one's climbing on either side and above. And they say yeah, but no kids ever actually are like, oh, I'll definitely keep that in mind for the. They should just start running.
I don't
in
think
front
they.
of other people.
I don't think that oftentimes like they just don't. Like I said, it's just a social awareness thing. You have it or you don't.
Right.
Something like going back. You said music in a gym,
Mm-hmm.
and this was something that was really interesting to me. So I asked on Reddit. I essentially asked the question: if you could put anything in a climbing gym, what would be important to you? And that's kind of where this like whole idea to have this episode stemmed from. I never would have thought about music. Like I guess when I'm climbing, I just don't pay attention to the music that much, which is insane because I'm a huge music person. Like I'd say like 75% of the time that I'm like awake and coherent, I'm listening to music if I'm not doing something else. And you said that that was like important to you. So like what type of music do you like in a climbing gym?
I really like a variety, actually. I think it kind of depends on what my goal is going into the gym that day. If I'm just hanging out and talking with friends, then yeah, I think in a lot of gyms kind of default to the indie rock, indie pop, standard, easy listening music.
Yeah.
Or like some throwback jams. I don't know, there's just times where I find that the music
is part of
really
the climbing experience.
Yeah, and it can impact my attitude and my energy there, and then that can also affect the type of day that I have at the gym. If I like the music and I'm
then
hyped,
you're like bopping around,
and I'm making my friends laugh because I'm dancing like a goofball, and then we're all just having a good time, that's a much better session than when it's like, who is playing this like 2010s, I'm back in my like high school dance. Like we can maybe leave the Kesha. I mean, peace and love to Kesha, but like if I but if I have to listen to like this place is about to blow one more time, I don't think I could do it. No more TikTok.
See, for me,
while climbing.
I'm kind of the same school of thought. Like I don't really care what type of music. I'm pretty open to a lot of different music styles, but for me it's the volume. So like if a gym has the music too loud, it just makes me like not want to be in there because it's just like a constant, just too loud. And obviously
sometimes those of us working at the gym do that on purpose because we want people to go home so we can close. We make it annoyingly loud so that everyone goes, actually I think I'm done and I'm gonna pack up.
That's
and we're
funny.
Gonna go.
That's something that I never thought about, but it's so accurate. They do honestly turn the music up.
At the end of the night.
At the end of the night.
Yeah.
Oh, dang.
It's on purpose.
That's crazy. Although, on the rocks, whenever they close it, I don't think they do this anymore because people, something happened, maybe, I don't know. But, they used to, or might still, play, what is that song?
Closing
like
time?
Closing time. Yeah,
everyone
yeah.
does that at 9:45.
Yeah. Closing time. I was thinking of that song, like it's not over tonight, and I was like, no, that's not the right song. But yeah, that's so interesting about the music, and that's something that a lot of people on Reddit were like, the music is like part of the vibe, and I was like, huh.
Yeah, I just think that. I remember when I was starting to climb and I didn't have much of an appreciation for the setting and all the other things. Least if I knew that I was going to go there and listen to some songs that I enjoyed listening to, that enticed me to keep going in the beginning.
Yeah, because it's just a place to hang out, yeah.
Now it can be silent and I'll probably still have a good time. But
Yeah.
at the beginning, I was like, you know what? I'm going to just go anyways because I'll just listen to... They seem to have all of my playlists lined up somehow, and I'll just be able to vibe out, and, like, maybe I'll get better at climbing. And that's exactly what happened. So, woohoo! That was cool.
So, I'm just going through the list here of some things that people said. One thing that somebody suggested is that when you first go to the climbing gym, like, free rental equipment for people that go for their first time. I actually think that that's, like, if the gym can financially afford that, I think it's, like, a really good way to get people to keep coming back. Because, like, I personally really like the idea of just, like, an all-in-one inclusive thing for your first time going. Because, like, you don't know the difference, like, if you're gonna need a harness or you're gonna need shoes. There was a gym, I'm not gonna say the name of the gym. It was a gym we were talking about previously.
Okay.
And you said that you weren't super impressed by it. Did a little walkthrough and walk out.
I know exactly where you're talking about.
But apparently they allow street shoes, like, on their wall.
I do remember them saying that.
Which is kind of crazy to me. Which is why their walls are the way...
Like
yeah.
Yeah.
But, no, so, to get back on topic, the like, full rental package where you get, like, a day pass, harness, shoes, chalk, like, whatever, I think is just, like, a really easy, concise way for newbies to, like, show up and be like, I will buy one of those and I will climb for the day.
It allows you for a much more enticing price to say, well, I'll just try anything I can.
Because I think the harness, right, in my mind, the harness is a big part of the thing. Because, like, people just starting off, they're like, oh, well, I don't want to go on the big tall, like, some people, I don't know, that how I was in the beginning, I was like, I don't really want to go on the big tall walls, and it's, like, extra for a harness, so I just, like, won't do that.
Right.
If it's, like, extra, why bother?
Right.
Whereas, like, if it's included, then that's, like, I don't know,
or even
you
if,
get to try
even
more
if it's
things.
just, like, a free harness just to get on, like, the auto belays.
Let's talk about the hours of a climbing gym.
Okay.
So, I have been to several gyms where it's 24 hours. So you buy a membership. Some gyms have, like, you can buy a non-24 hour membership for X price, and then if you want to go 24 hours, you can buy it for X plus a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's fair, right? Yeah. Because for those people that don't want the 24 hour access, you know, it's, like, a little bit cheaper.
Right.
But I personally think that that's really cool because I think a lot of climbers don't necessarily have, like, day jobs, like 9 to 5 day jobs. Like,
or we do, and it makes it really hard to try to squeeze it in between 2 to 10, which is at least when a lot of gyms around here are open. They close it early on the weekend.
If we're talking about an ideal gym here, 24 hour access is cool.
The other thing I would be curious about is, like, I think if you have rope walls in which you'd allow people access 24 hours, you would have to have a staff member on the clock.
Right. Which is why I think the gyms that I've been to, they've either been bouldering only gyms, mm-hmm. or they've been gyms where only the bouldering is open 24 hours. Mm-hmm. And, like, it's partitioned off where you can't even get into the rope climbing section.
Right.
When
and that's, so. I mean, I think that makes sense, and that's probably why it's not as
common.
I guess some gyms are located in nicer areas, but I feel like at least around here in, like, Northeast Ohio, it's the only buildings that are large enough and vacant enough for a rock climbing gym to go in are not necessarily places you'd want to go at 3 a.m. to go climb.
That's 100% fair. I think that for me the hours don't matter too much because the general hours that are open, like, with my job, it works for me. But I do think that there are a lot of people that like to go to, like, earlier sessions or whatnot.
I would say I did like that the Seattle Bouldering Project I almost said in Seattle. Wow, that would have been...
The Seattle.
Well, I wonder where that's located. They are open, I think, as early as, like, 7 a.m.
Yeah.
Which is cool for people that do have, like, second shift jobs where, oh, hey, I'll just wake up in the morning. Or, you know, there are plenty of times where, you know, if I have the day off or if it's a weekend, I'll be like, oh, I kind of wish I could go climbing. Oh, it's not open for another 2 hours.
Right. No,
Cool.
I agree. So we're going through the list of things that people have mentioned. Friendly staff is one of the things on there. I think we kind of touched on that with the, like, being welcoming. But just, like, I like when staff at least acknowledges that you're there. That's nice.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever been to a gym yet
With
which that
unfriendly
hasn't
staff?
happened.
I have been to one gym where it wasn't that gym staff did anything, like, wrong. They weren't, like, actively being rude or anything. They just kind of acted like they didn't, like, they could care less if we were there. So that was a little bit off-putting, as you can imagine. But, like, I mean, you can't control everybody to be, maybe they were having a bad day.
That's true, and I don't know. I feel like maybe I have a bit of a different perspective
Because you work at
a
a gym, yeah.
staff member, so to speak, where there are just times where
You're just
you're
over
just
it.
kind of tired of people coming in.
That's fair.
And a lot of unless someone really needs your help and your attention, you know, a lot of people come climbing in with their friends, and it's like, all right, fine. You want to climb on these walls? Go for it. Just keep to yourself. Don't hurt yourself, and have fun, I guess.
That's
like,
fair.
I'm tired. So I try to be a little more understanding. I'm honestly shocked at how many friends I've made that are staff members, just because they are, like, so excited to be there, and a lot of the ones I've met, I didn't even know they were staff members until I saw them behind the desk. I was like, wait a minute, you work here? What?
Yeah, I think, so maybe something to add in our ideal gym, if we're picking staff, in the most ideal situations, like, staff members that actually are interested in climbing.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, that makes a big difference, I feel like.
It does.
Being able to, like, even being able to go up to someone and be like, hey, like, what do I do for this? Or, like, where's this start? Or, like, who said this? Like, can I please, like,
can I please have a formal complaint?
Yeah. I guess that's what I mean by friendly staff. People were saying as well, routes being reset often enough.
I definitely like when gyms, even gyms that I don't have the ability to frequently go to, if I can climb the same route a couple of times, because there have been times, especially on the rocks, which at least in Northeast Ohio you guys grade relatively harder than
compared to
other gyms, and in the beginning when I was making lots of big progress really, really quickly, there were routes that I couldn't even start the first time I went there, and then I went back like 5-6 weeks later, and it was still there. I mean, it was just about to be reset, but it was still there, and then suddenly I could get halfway up where I could finally complete it, and it was cool to be able to see, like, this is that same one that I had trouble with, and now you don't get that same sense of satisfaction if the routes are just changing, like, every 2 weeks before you're about to get it. I think that there's a happy medium there. I don't know that I've been to any gyms where the routes, there was a time at my home gym where the scheduling was weird, and they had to delay changing the routes, and things are starting to get really, really old, and then they changed them, and I liked them, and then like a week later they had a competition, and so all of the new stuff got torn down and replaced with all these competition routes, which were also new. And that was cool for a second, until a lot of them were way harder than things that I could climb at the time, and I missed all the other sets that they just had up, and I was like, wait, could we get those ones back?
Yeah.
And then they kept the competition ones up also for a long time, because there were like other scheduling conflicts, and I was like, I just don't want to look at these anymore. And that's really the only time that's ever happened, and that was like within the first month of me climbing.
I think that, so there's a happy medium, right? Like, you don't want things to be taken down too quickly so that you don't get a chance to work on them, but you also don't want things staying up forever so that you're like, okay, like, it would be nice to have something fresh and new. So ideally, I was talking to one of my friends that sets for mosaic climbing in Cincinnati.
Gotcha.
And she said that they're on, like, an 8-week rotation. So that's 2 months that routes stay up. And I think that's...
Is that a big gym?
Yeah, it's a big gym.
Okay, I was going to say, that's a long time.
It is a long time, but there's, like lots to climb. So
Okay. Yeah, I would be curious to know what Climb Cleveland's rotation schedule is, just because they have so many.
I think so to me, like, I'm thinking 2 months, like, maybe I'd say on average, like, if you're into climbing decently, it seems as if most climbers go, like, maybe twice a week, like, once or twice a week, maybe.
I go like,
No, I know.
I go like 5 times a week.
I know, same.
So for
like,
me.
no, I'm just saying,
I
like,
know.
and I'm the same way, like, well, not anymore, because I used to go, like, 5-6 times a week, and then I learned that rest can be beneficial to you. But yeah, so let's just say, like, the typical climber goes, like, 2 to 3 times. It varies,
Yes.
but then if you're going for 8 weeks, that's like
16.
that's 16 sessions for you to try your
Kind of a lot.
projects, which, depending on how much space is available and how many different things are set, could be a minute. We've talked about lead, top roping, and bouldering, but in my ideal gym, it has all three.
Right.
Like, in my ideal gym, I don't want just a bouldering gym or just a lead climbing gym. Like, it should have all three. We've been to bouldering gyms before that were like, this would be the best gym ever. We would give it 5 stars, but it doesn't have any, like, rope climbing. My cat is chasing a plastic Easter egg around the room for any background noise you may hear. Something that you got to do at Shaker, where you got to do the setting clinic, right?
I did, yes.
Members setting. I think that that's such a cool idea for gyms to include, because I wish that I could get into that. And I think that that's a really cool thing.
Yes, I would love if they did that again, and or, you know, if that became more common where, you know, maybe it's just kind of a slow part of the year, like even just before a new set was about to go up, if a gym just dedicated a wall or part of a wall and let some of the members come and try their hands and then just leave it up for a week or two. You know, it doesn't have to be up there for the full 2 months that we were saying other routes had to be up there, but I think it would be cool if if they're, you know, ideally in our perfect gym, it would be so big that we could have a DIY setting wall. Almost,
it would have a whole wall just for members to set.
Well, I mean, think about it. Especially if you had
cool.
something, you know, a lot of gyms have at least one, if not multiple, kilter boards and moon boards. If they had a small, like, 12 by 12 route, and then people can just, you know, sign their name on a list, and then they can put their route up. And then
that'd be really cool.
It could be up there for a week, and then the next person can set their route, and then everyone can try it.
Yeah, like a little guest route setter.
Yeah, like a little
like
guest route setter thing, and then, you know, if
but
there's someone that's knocking it out of the park, then yeah, maybe they can try putting one up on one of the real walls. But I think you could do enough with some temporary volumes and just a box of generic holds where you could get some pretty cool stuff and kind of get some new ideas. Maybe the route setters could even be inspired by
different,
you know,
things.
Tweaking something that someone new was like, what about something like this? They're like, well, that doesn't really work, but we could do it this way. And then, you know, I think that that's a great way of getting suggestions from
And then I also
climbers.
think it keeps your members happier because, like, they feel like they are more of an inclusive part of the gym if their, like, opinions on setting, or, like, not necessarily even implemented, but at least, like, considered.
Yes.
If that makes sense. Keeping, like, the community happy. But all this being said, setting, that's a hell of a job, dude.
It is such an art form.
I
always feel... I never know how to feel when I have opinions on the setting, because I know that it could just very well be me being a bad climber.
It's like one of those things, I feel like you shouldn't be able to have an opinion on it till you do it, but at the same time you have an opinion on it. Does that make sense? Is that fair?
I think climbers are more... I think that's partially why it would be important for climbers to have the opportunity to set, because I think the ones that have, you know, such strong opinions, maybe if they
Then-
tried it, and then they'd go like, okay, maybe
Straight up
it's
me.
not
Straight
the most
up,
ridiculous
I'm
thing.
pointing my finger at me.
I did the route setting clinic, and I still have opinions sometimes. Sometimes even more so now that I've done it, going, you know what? Even I could do something better than this right now. You need to have routes that, and that is a really hard balance to strike, the routes that allow the new people to get a taste of it, and the routes that keep the good ones coming back.
All right, and now for a quick commercial break, we are drinking Athletic Brewing. If you would like to get 20% off your own non-alcoholic beer that tastes just like beer, I'm drinking the Run Wild IPA. And Viv, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking the Cerveza Atletica.
If you would like to get 20% off Athletic Brewing, your first purchase, you can use code CourtneyS20 at checkout. Thank you to Athletic Brewing for supporting the pod.
Thank you, Athletic Brewing.
And now, back to...
Top 10 features of climbing gyms.
Number 1. Just kidding. But that is how they do it, though.
That is. I don't understand why they talk like that. It made sense at first because I thought it's very obvious that someone from another country was just Google translating, and then they were just commissioning some third-rate...
I think it's a robot.
I don't think... It's not a robot. It's someone who is scrambling for cash in Los Angeles, and they're just willing to do any voice
just like
acting,
these generic voices.
And so
it's like the person in the commercial that just gets like the smile and bite, like, or like the spoonful of yogurt. It's like that's the voice equivalent of it.
Yes.
Dang. All right, so let's get back to features of climbing gyms that we like. So someone said something about let's just touch on this briefly, but what's your opinion on shirtless climbing? I know people have strong opinions about whether or not it should be allowed in climbing gyms, in my experience.
I don't care.
I don't care either.
I wear my sports bra.
I feel like if women or people that wear sports bras want
people.
people that have breasts or not, anyone that wears a sports bra, if they can wear a sports bra, I don't see why people can't be shirtless. But I don't know.
I don't think anyone would even have arguments if I wanted to climb shirtless. I know quite a few people that would probably be on board. So
yeah, that's true. I don't know. It sparked a little bit of a discussion on the Reddit community. People were saying that like they either felt like some people felt like across the board it should be a rule no, or across the board it should be yes, or like all these repercussions. And I was like, you know what? Like I'd say until it's an issue, it's not an issue. As
someone who I grew up in Catholic schooling, uniforms, I love uniforms. I've dealt with the craziest of all
love uniforms?
I loved not having to think about what I
See, I'm like the complete opposite. I'm like, I do
like wearing my own weird shit now.
Yeah, you have good clothes.
I do have good clothes.
I went over to Viv's house, and I like walked by her closet, and I literally just went, yo.
I love that you call it a closet when it's quite literally a circular rack.
It's like one of those circular racks that you see like in a store.
It's a department store circular rack that I bought off of Amazon.
Okay, I was gonna say, did you just like...
I kind of wanted to hijack one from like Kohl's, but I was like, it sounds like way too much work, so...
But yeah, let's move on from that, because honestly,
I have no issue with
I was just surprised by the amount of
I also really enjoy a good pair of shoulders and a nice back, so like I'm not gonna complain if someone feels comfortable enough to climb with their shirt off.
That's actually so funny.
Thanks.
Because and Jed was there, so it's all good, but I was checking out someone's back muscles at the climbing gym literally hours before this when I went to the gym. Let's see, water fountains that are close to the climbing. This was something that I put on the list. I want water fountains that are close to the climbing, because I hate it when you're like thirsty and you have to like walk 8 miles to go get a drink. You could just bring a water bottle, but that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, Viv. Not in my ideal gym.
I would say, as long as the water fountains have a reasonable water bottle filling station,
Yeah,
with which
fair.
you can carry the water to you, I don't really care if they seclude them next to the bathrooms that are far, far away.
That's fair.
I do like when they're close. Water fountains at all. I currently go to gyms where they just have a pure filter hooked up to the sink, and you just go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Or just no pure filter, and you just go for it straight from the sink.
I thought you were gonna say I go to a gym without, like, any water source, and I was like, what? No.
Sometimes it feels that way, but
Ooh.
no. So,
Yeah.
So, water fountain at all, close to the climbing, sure. As long as there's one of those LK water bottle filling stations, I'm Gucci. That's all I need.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the ones that have the water bottle filling thing. But, okay, next up, oh wait, I skipped one.
Oh.
A system, okay, listen to this. A system that allows camping in the parking lot.
I've never heard of that, and I don't
It's
want
not
that.
a thing.
No.
It's something that I just made up.
Why?
Because I feel like there are so many van lifers out there that they just drive their vans around. Think about if it was like a set up camping system. Think about how much attention you could draw to your gym if van lifers knew, like, hey, this is a spot where we can come and park and, like, climb, hang out, chill.
I could potentially see, and this isn't going to make sense to anybody else potentially, but like Shaker Rocks has across the street, there's seemingly a field of emptiness.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be cool. But for the love of God, can we please prioritize parking for us non-campers?
Well, yeah,
because
the
number of climbing.
I'm not saying like, oh hey, everyone camp.
No, I'm just saying that On the Rocks is the only gym around here that has like reliable parking at the building.
Yeah, it always has parking,
else,
and even if all the parking spots has filled up, there's plenty of room on the side where you can, if it gets really busy.
Whereas every other gym by me, you could get a good spot, or you might be walking 10-15 minutes from the street parking.
Yeah.
And in the summer, no biggie, it's my warm-up and my cool-down, but in the winter, when the parking gets even worse because there's just ice piles in what would be a nice parking spot, it's so frustrating. The number of times that I've actually wanted to go get a membership to a gym but decided against it because the parking situation was just so that's enough for me to just not even want to get a membership, let alone let's let the van the van lifers have a van. Let's just let them.
I just thought it would be a cool thing. I know it would come with its own set of problems and issues, but we're going ideal here. I was dreaming big, Viv.
Yeah, if we're dreaming big, then that would be cool. But there's a part of me that would just kind of like to fix up the ones we already have. Fair. And a lot of that would require more parking spaces or some way that it's easily accessible by public transit or, there's just a lot of them are just kind of stuck in the middle of nowhere.
In random places. I feel like, and this is the next point on the list, I feel like it's because they're trying to find a building that's, like, good for climbing, which means it has to be tall, like you said, the whole warehouse thing and being in areas that might not be the best areas.
3 a.m.
But the ceiling height is high enough. This is something that I put on the list because I feel like, this is my opinion, I appreciate people that are going to try and build a space that's a climbing gym in an area that's underserved, like doesn't have a space. You might have to drive a bit. But like, either find a building that's high enough to like have reasonable bouldering, or like just don't.
Because, or dig if you're like Cleveland Rocks, which, we're still waiting 3 years later, but it's gonna be good.
I just think that if you can't find a building that's not maybe 2 times as tall as you, Like, I don't know. There's some gyms, they're just very short, and you have to finish the bouldering out. There's a gym that I'm thinking of. You have to finish the bouldering out by, like, literally tilting your neck to avoid the ceiling. Yeah.
Have I been to this
No,
place?
you
No.
haven't.
Okay.
It's, like, very small, but...
I was gonna say, there are, I mean...
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say even at my gyms, there are times where the holds get very close to the ceiling.
Yeah.
And
It's just people trying to fit the thing to the building. I get it. I get it.
And I think that kind of... There are also some gyms, like, the walls get very tall at On the Rocks for bouldering. Like, I get scared getting up that high.
A lot of people say that our bouldering is really high, and I think our
tall.
bouldering is around 15 feet. But a lot of people, that is...
I think it's because your pads are basically cement covered in vinyl. They're so stiff.
Our pads are stiff?
So stiff.
So that's... I get upset when I go to other gyms, and the pads are so bouncy that I feel like when I land, I'm going to roll my ankle, literally, just because I'm not used to it, but that's because our pads are apparently stiff. I thought our pads were fairly standard.
No.
But there are some climbing gyms. In my ideal gym, I want at least some sort of actual pads, because, like, I'm fine with the whole grunge vibe of a gym. Like, I actually kind of enjoy some of, like, more grungy, like, more non-commercial gyms. And I'm fine with that. But, like, it seems like the grungier the gym gets, the less padding there actually is. And one example of that is, like, a gym that I love, but it's, like, literally just, like, playground mulch covered in, like, fabric. Like heavy duty, like, felt, basically. And it's, like, it wasn't the worst thing ever. It's just, like, it wouldn't be my ideal.
Right. I would say... So, I agree with you. The bouncy foam seems to kind of be on trend, especially with the elite sporty gyms. They have those weird pillow top cover. I'm kind of used to those, but I do think that they lend themselves to the possibility of a high ankle sprain if you land and your foot flexes too far. I do think that your gym's crash pads, they're not, like, rock hard once you get a little used to it, but it's always the first time that I jump down and I'm like, oh my god. Cleveland Rocks has by far the weirdest floor. It's like a gymnastic floor where it's like springs. It's like a springy floor covered by what looks like office carpet. And so... Really? Yeah. And so it's kind of bouncy as you walk on it, but it also folds weird, and if you land in the middle of it, it's okay, but there are a lot of areas, they have a very interesting wall geometry where they'll have kind of their own arêtes kind of coming in and out and whatever, and the floor will roll in towards the base of the floor because it's raised up on the springs, but obviously you can't have springs all the way to the wall, so where the last spring ends to where they're sealing the carpet to the edge of the floor. So it's kind of like slanted towards the wall. It slants towards the wall, so if you fall on an overhang near the wall, you land and then you start sliding in towards the wall.
Yeah, I don't like that at all. And
the first time that happened to me, it was a little terrifying. Yeah. I got used to it. Again, I think that's with everything. The more you get accustomed to, you have to learn how to fall in each gym, and I think that might be part of the staff's responsibility to understand, like, how their crash pads and what they would recommend for the falling safety in that case. You know,
safety. That okay. We're talking about like all these minute things, but I think that one of the biggest things in a gym is like it being safe. Like, that's number one out of, like, everything. Like, it really bugs me if I'm, like, seeing people doing things that are, like, very unsafe. Or, I mean, even...
Or if the holds aren't secured after the wall has just been reset. Yeah. That's happened to me a bunch of times. Where...
It's funny because at the gym that I started climbing at, I thought that it was common practice for the holds to not be super, like, screwed into the wall, because every time I climbed there, like, and I would go like 5-6 times a week, like in the beginning. Every time I climbed there, I just made it a habit to go over and grab the little like Allen wrench or whatever, yep. And like tighten whatever holds, because they just weren't tightened.
Yeah.
And like I would find a spinner almost every time. Yep. And that is a big safety thing.
It is, especially on beginner routes.
Right,
I always made it a practice to, I try to climb as many of the B's, zeros, and ones when I'm on a shift, especially on a new wall, just to make sure that nothing's going to catch a new person off guard. I mean, obviously it's important. It's probably even more important on the technical routes, that those holds are secure, but you would expect the climbers getting up that far at least have an idea. They've either dealt with it before, or they have an idea of how to fall, how to get down, whatnot, how to adjust for that. Whereas, you know, if I was new and I was 12 feet up and my last hold started spinning on me, I don't even want to think about.
Yeah, well, the thing is, too, is, like, I just imagine, like, someone coming in for their first time, they're, like, kind of on the fence about climbing, and they're like, like, maybe I'll do this, maybe I won't. Like, they climb their first, like, beginner route, and they're just, like, cruising, they're like, oh, this isn't so bad, and then they just, like, fall, so, I don't know, definitely,
Ooh, and low volumes. How do you feel about low volumes?
What do you mean?
So, like, on a climbing wall that has either large holds or pointy volumes.
Gotcha.
Within, I would say, like, standing next to it, like, between mid-shin to, like, upper thigh. That region, a lot of, you know, it makes for really cool routes if you're walking over them or using it as part of your start. But if you're above that, when you fall, I mean, I have hit my shins countless times on very pointy plywood volumes sticking out in
that's a huge safety concern. I get what you're saying. I think that just comes back to setting, and it, like we talked about before, setting is just like a hard thing in general. But something that On the Rocks has is they have an arch, right? And so when you're going to see who's climbing, like, on that other side, you can't really see until you, like, walk under that arch. They have a mirror.
Yes.
So,
they
like,
have the 360 mirror for...
And I think that that's, like, a really ideal thing.
I think that my home gym should get one of those, because there's an archway that leads into, like, the kitchenette area. And it's part of our safety first-timer tour protocol to point that out, because it's something that even I kind of forget about, is that if I'm walking out from underneath it, I don't know if someone's above that doorway. And there are so many times where I've walked through that and turned around and went, oh, I'm very glad that nobody was climbing there, because I just didn't even think to check, and I've been there for months. And so it's
easy to forget.
I think safety is one of those.
Climbing is inherently dangerous.
It's inherently dangerous. Yeah.
So, like, in an ideal gym, it's very important that safety is a primary concern.
Yes.
Last on the list is, like, training equipment / like moonboard, tension board,
campus board.
Yeah. How important is all that to you? Because I know for me personally, I'm just starting to get into any sort of, like, climbing specific training. Like, my training for climbing is just climbing.
Right.
So, like, before, if someone asked me, like, is it important, all this stuff in a climbing gym, I'd be like, not really. But now that I'm training for climbing, it's really important, because I don't want to have, like, a full set of dumbbells and, like, all this stuff in my own apartment. I'd rather just go to the gym.
Right. I also think that it's quite important. I don't know that you necessarily need, a lot of gyms go overkill. They're like, we have a moon board and 2 tension boards and a kilter board and a campusing board and 8, finger boards.
Yeah.
And a full weight rack. And it's like, okay, I would be fine with, like, 2 of those. And maybe the more serious, and maybe it is just because I started climbing 8 months ago, and so I don't really have the finger strength for all of those things just yet. I will say the kilter board has been really clutch in those past few weeks where I mentioned that I was getting very frustrated with the setting and I just couldn't even get halfway up the 2s and the 3s. I was
so then you can just use the kilter board and like set your own.
We had a 25-degree kilter board, and it was a really good way for me to still kind of get some practice in, train my fingers a little bit. And now that I started getting into CrossFit, I do really like when gyms have, you know, some dumbbells and weight rack and pull-up bars and stuff. And I think that it's cool that I could, if I can't necessarily make it to a CrossFit class, I could look up what the workout is that day and I could do it by myself at the climbing gym because I always have access there whenever. So if I can't make it to a specific class, I still have the resources available to be able to keep myself fit and healthy.
I think if you have the space to have fitness equipment, I think it's super cool. Because to me, if I'm looking to sign up for a membership, and I'm the type of person that I might go to, like, a regular lifting gym instead, one of the benefits of, like, why I would choose, like, say there's climbing gym A and climbing gym B, and they're both about the same price, but climbing gym B has, like, fitness equipment, like, even just, like, basic things, I would choose that, because 100%. Then I'm not going to have to get a membership to get another gym to go do.
That, I think having yoga classes available is a really, really cool selling
I don't
point.
take nearly as much of advantage of the yoga class. I should. I definitely should.
Absolutely supplemented my climbing immensely.
We've started doing our own stretches here at home, and I mostly just yell a lot. So, like, you can literally ask Jed. I just, like, he, like, set a timer, and he's like, all right, we're doing the stretch for this amount of thing, and I'm like, I hate this, and I don't want to do it, because I don't want to yell into the mic, but I'll just be like, I hate this sucks. Like, and he's like, does yelling make you feel better? I'm like, somehow, yeah. I would be interested if anyone out there is listening to us at this point. What are some of the things that you absolutely, they're like key to the way you choose your climbing gym?
Yeah.
We'll end it out on this because I think that this is a really good idea that Viv had. We'll end on one good idea Viv had and one good idea
the only good idea I've ever had.
One good idea Viv had and one good idea I had. So for ideal gyms, Viv said that she wanted, as someone that goes solo climbing quite a bit, she wanted to practice lead climbing. Mm-hmm. And your idea was to put quick draws on the auto belay walls so that people could practice mock leading.
Yes.
I thought that was a really good idea, and I think that more gyms should implement it.
I do as well. I will say that I spoke to one of the setters at Shaker Rocks, and they said that a reason that they don't do that is because quite a few children and new climbers are the ones that go to the auto belays. They didn't want someone grabbing a quick draw if they started falling and then potentially having part of their finger or their hand caught in the gate, which fair, but
they also should. It would be cool to have at least just like one designated route, and then maybe like people are, I don't know.
I know.
I thought it was a cool idea.
I do too, and I appreciate that you appreciate the idea. And rest assured, I'm trying to come up with
a solution. And then
what was your good
my
idea?
good idea / I think this was maybe Jed's good idea, but I'm taking credit for it.
Do it.
There should be a set of standard routes, like V's. We'll just go bouldering. So V0 through whatever the highest grade you're gonna set. I don't know, whatever. For me, like 4. So like there should be a set of like, let's just say one problem, one V0, one V1, one V2, all the way up to like 8, 9, 10, whatever. And that specific set of routes is like the standard set of routes for those grades, and they set it and they leave it up for like the designated amount of time at the beginning of the year, and everyone like can climb it and see where they're at, how they do on all these different ones. Then they take it down and they put up whatever for the rest of the year, like, sure, whatever. Then, like, at the beginning of the next year, they put up that exact same set on the exact same walls and everything so that you can climb it again, like, a year later and actually see, like, oh, I actually have made progress, like,
yes,
on these climbs.
Would love
That'd be so cool. And I know that they have,
cool.
like, basically benchmark climbs on, like, tension board and moon board. So it's, like, that concept, but it's, like, gym specific.
Yes.
So I'm not saying that it should be, like, the same across every gym. I think it would be cool if each gym had their own unique set of, like...
This is what a V2 is for us.
Yeah, or something like that. And I know, obviously, it would be, like, kind of hard because, you know, like, oh, maybe the V2 is slopey, and then, like, the V3 is, like, crimpy, and maybe, like, obviously, it would be a little bit... Like, it wouldn't be perfect, right? But it still would be cool to be like, oh, I couldn't climb this route last year, and now I can.
I think there are skills that are definitely more suited towards each V grade. And yeah, I mean, you aren't gonna get into the slopey and crimpy stuff until you do get into, like, the 3s, 4s, 5s. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's its own barrier, and maybe that isn't where your skill set is at, but who knows? Yeah, maybe after a year you get a little bit better at it, and it would still be cool to see how much, you know, maybe you can get further up the V4 because it's crimpy and that's what you're better at than you did the year before, and maybe you don't send it yet, but you're closer, or things feel easier.
Or even you can, like, if you were to video yourself as a climber...
Oh, I record my climbs all the time.
Like, you could be like, oh, last year I climbed the V0 and, like, sure, I made it to the top, but I looked like a...
sketchy.
Yeah. Something that I feel frustrated with sometimes, and I think that this is, like, a lot of climbers, is I feel like I'm not getting better because I can't see the progress as it relates to a grade.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, I've been climbing V3, V4 for, like, the last 2 years. And so I'm like, I haven't made any progress, but you can't tell me that in the past 2 years I haven't gotten any better at climbing because I know for a fact I have.
Yeah.
Like, I can feel it, I can see it, like, you know, so just because you're not jumping up grades, I think that would just be a cool way to be like, I couldn't climb this before, now I can, or at least I can get farther.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, all right, well, that's a wrap on episode 2 of the Crag Chat.
Thank you for letting me be a special guest. Maybe if we get enough cool comments, we'll be able to make a part 2 to part 2.
Yeah. Thank you for being on.
Oh, yeah,
I appreciate it.
I love talking about climbing.
If you have any ideas as a listener about what we should ramble about, let us know.
We'll do it. We're good at rambling. That's a skill set.
Don't tempt us with a good time. All right, bye. Love you.